I don't know how long I've been on this bus. That sounds dramatic, I know. Let me back up. My name is Alex, and I boarded the 11:45 p.m. Greyhound from Pittsburgh to Chicago last night. Or at least, I think it was last night. It was supposed to be a straightforward 8-hour trip. I'd pop a sleeping pill, catch some Z's, and wake up just in time to start my new job. Simple, right? Wrong. As I sit here watching the endless stretch of highway disappear beneath the wheels of the bus, I'm starting to think I've made a terrible mistake. The clock on my phone hasn't changed in hours. It's stuck at 3:17 a.m. But that can't be right. We should have arrived by now. I remember the day leading up to this trip vividly. The weight of my recent layoff still heavy on my shoulders. The bitter taste of a relationship ended too soon still on my tongue. This job in Chicago was supposed to be a fresh start. My chance to leave behind the wreckage of my life in Pittsburgh. Now, as I watch the unfamiliar landscape rush by, I wonder if I've made a grave error in my judgment. The bus station was nearly empty when I arrived. Just a few weary travelers scattered about. I remember the flickering fluorescent lights, the squeaky wheel of my suitcase echoing in the cavernous space, the ticket counter attendant's bored expression as she handed me my pass. All so mundane, so normal. How did I end up here? The vending machine in the corner caught my eye. Its gentle hum seemed to call out to me, promising a last taste of normalcy before my journey. I bought a candy bar, the wrapper crinkling loudly in the quiet station. The chocolate was stale, but I savored it anyway. Little did I know it would be my last meal in, well, I don't know how long. The driver, a tall man with a gaunt face and sunken eyes, barely glanced at my ticket before waving me on. His long, bony fingers sent a shiver down my spine as they brushed against mine. The acrid smell of diesel fumes mingled with the musty odor of old upholstery as I boarded the bus. The floor creaked ominously under my feet, and I could feel every imperfection in the worn rubber matting through the soles of my shoes. As I made my way to my seat, the cold metal of the handrail sent a chill through my fingers. I found a seat near the back, away from the handful of other passengers. There was an old woman knitting something that looked less like a scarf and more like a tangled mass of yarn. Her needles clicked rhythmically, a soothing counterpoint to my racing thoughts. A businessman in his rumpled suit, his tie askew, muttering into his phone. His voice was low, urgent, filled with barely contained panic. A young couple, practically attached at the hip, giggling and whispering to each other. Their happiness seemed out of place in the somber atmosphere of the late-night bus. And in the very front, a hooded figure that hadn't moved since we left Pittsburgh. I popped my sleeping pill, put in my earbuds, and leaned against the window. The last thing I remember before drifting off was the city lights fading away, giving way to the pitch black of the countryside. The gentle rumble of the bus engine lulled me into a fitful sleep, filled with strange dreams of endlessly winding roads and shadowy figures. I jolted awake, my mouth dry and tasting of stale sleep. The rhythmic rumble of the bus engine had changed, now thrumming with an unsettling, almost organic quality. The air felt thick and oppressive, carrying a faint metallic tang that made my tongue curl. As I blinked away the bleariness, the darkness outside seemed to press against the windows like a living thing, its inky tendrils leaving smears on the glass. Everything was wrong. The sky outside, an inky black void. No stars, no moon, just darkness. And the landscape, not the Midwest I expected. Sometimes I saw dense forests with trees that seemed to bend in impossible ways. Other times, a barren wasteland stretching as far as the eye could see. But the weirdest part? We hadn't stopped. Not once. No rest areas, no other vehicles on the road. Just us. This bus. And the ever-changing, yet somehow always the same, landscape rushing by outside. I tried to ask the other passengers if they'd noticed anything strange, but they just stared at me blankly. The old woman's knitting had grown to cover her entire seat. As I passed by, I swore I saw one of the yarn tendrils reach out towards me, recoiling just as I noticed it. The click-clack of her knitting needle seemed to echo in my skull, each impact sending a jolt of unease down my spine. As I approached, the acrid scent of mothballs assaulted my nostrils, undercut by something sickeningly sweet and rotting. The yarn writhed in her lap, and I swear I felt something brush against my ankle, soft and sinuous. The clicking of her needles had taken on an almost hypnotic rhythm, like some alien Morse code. "Excuse me," I said, my voice sounding strange in the unnatural quiet of the bus. "Have you noticed anything odd about our trip?" She looked up at me, her eyes cloudy and unfocused. For a moment, I thought I saw something move behind them, like shadows swimming in murky water. Then she smiled, her teeth too white, too perfect.
"Odd? No, dear. Everything is just as it should be. We're all where we need to be."
The businessman's muttering had devolved into an incomprehensible garble. But as I walked past his seat, for a moment, just a split second, his words became crystal clear. "The geometry is wrong," he said, his eyes reflecting impossible colors. "We're not where we should be." I stopped, my heart pounding. "What do you mean?" I asked. But he was back to his nonsensical muttering, staring out the window at the ever-changing landscape. I noticed his suit seemed to be moving, rippling like water. Were those tentacles writhing beneath the fabric? The couple was still giggling, but their laughter sounded hollow, almost mechanical. Their faces seemed to be shifting, melting like wax under an unseen flame. As I watched, horrified, their features began to blend together, two becoming one in a grotesque dance of flesh. And the hooded figure still hadn't moved, but it seemed larger now somehow, taking up more space than before. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching me, even though I couldn't see any eyes beneath that hood. I stumbled back to my seat, my mind reeling. This couldn't be happening. This had to be a dream, right? A hallucination from that sleeping pill? I pinched myself hard. The pain was sharp, real. This was no dream. I'm writing this all down because I'm afraid I might forget. Or worse, that I might start to think this is normal. But it's not normal. This bus ride should have ended hours ago. I don't know where we're going anymore. I don't know if we're even in the same world I boarded this bus in. All I know is that the night stretches on. The bus keeps moving. And Chicago feels further away with each passing mile. If anyone finds this, please send help. I want to go home. I want this ride to end. But a small voice in my mind whispers a terrifying thought. What if it never does? Edit. I don't know how long it's been since I last wrote. Hours, days. The concept of time seems to be slipping away from me, like water through cupped hands. I tried talking to the driver. I walked up to the front of the bus, my legs wobbly from disuse, and called out to him. He didn't respond. I reached out to tap on his shoulder, but something made me hesitate. A chill ran down my spine, and I quickly retreated to my seat. As I passed the old woman again, her knitting had become even more grotesque. The yarn writhed and pulsed, forming patterns that hurt my eyes if I looked at them too long. Spirals within spirals. Fractals that seemed to go on forever. She didn't seem bothered by it, her needles clicking away ceaselessly. "Ma'am?" I said, my voice shaking. "You're knitting. It's moving." She looked up at me, her eyes now completely black.
"Of course it is, dear. It's alive, you see. Just like everything else on this bus."
I stumbled backward, nearly falling into the lap of the businessman. He caught me with hands that felt too cold, too rigid to be human. His eyes, when they met mine, were reflecting impossible colors that shouldn't exist. "The angles are all wrong," he whispered, his voice a rasp. "Can't you see it? The bus, the road, us. We're not conforming to the geometry of your world anymore." I wrenched away from him, my heart pounding. The young couple. God, the young couple. They were still in the same position, still giggling, but their faces had fully melted together now. 2 bodies, one horrifically fused head, 4 eyes blinking in unsynchronized patterns. And the hooded figure at the front? It's grown. Its form now takes up 2 seats instead of 1, and sometimes I catch a glimpse of something moving under the hood. Something that's definitely not human. The landscape outside had become even more bizarre. We passed through a forest where the trees were made of glass, their crystalline branches tinkling in a wind I couldn't feel. Then suddenly we were driving through an ocean. Yes, an ocean. Water surrounded us on all sides. Strange, bioluminescent creatures drifted past the windows. But the bus kept moving as if we were still on a road. I tried to use the bathroom earlier, needing a moment alone to collect my thoughts. But when I opened the door, I found myself staring into an abyss. An actual, endless void where the tiny bus bathroom should have been. I slammed the door shut and haven't dared to open it since. The worst part? I'm starting to forget why I got on this bus in the first place. Was I really going to Chicago? Did I have a job waiting for me? The memories feel hazy, like a dream slipping away upon waking. All I can remember clearly is the bus, the endless night, the impossible landscapes rushing by outside. Sometimes, when I look out the window, I see other buses. They're driving alongside us, filled with passengers who look just as lost and terrified as I feel. But in the blink of an eye, they're gone, swallowed up by the ever-changing landscape. I'm writing this down because I'm afraid. Afraid that if I stop, if I accept this as my new reality, I'll become like the others. Oblivious. Changed. No longer human. The bus keeps moving. The night stretches on. And with every passing moment, I feel like the world is slipping further and further away. If anyone is reading this, please understand. This isn't just a bus ride anymore. It's something else. Something terrifying. And I don't know how to make it stop. I don't know what compelled me to do it. Maybe it was desperation, maybe it was madness. But I stood up, stumbled to the front of the bus, and shouted at the driver, "Stop the bus! For the love of God, just stop!" And to my utter shock, he did. The bus screeched to a halt, the sudden stop nearly throwing me off my feet. For a moment, everything was silent. The endless hum of the engine, the background noise I'd grown so accustomed to, was gone. I could hear my heart pounding in my chest. I turned to look at the other passengers to see if they'd reacted to this sudden change. What I saw will haunt me for the rest of my life. Every single person on the bus had stopped what they were doing. The old woman's needles hung suspended in midair. The businessman's writhing tentacles froze mid-undulation. The melting couple's faces had solidified into grotesque masks. And then, as one, they all turned to look at me. Their eyes were wide, impossibly wide, bulging out of their sockets. Their mouths hung open in perfect O's of surprise. Even the hooded figure at the front had turned, its hood falling back to reveal nothing. Just an empty void where a face should be. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I knew was that I had to get out of there. I lunged for the door, my fingers scrabbling at the handle. As it swung open, a chorus of screams erupted from behind me. Not screams of fear or pain, but of awe, as if they were witnessing something both terrible and magnificent. I tumbled out onto... what? It wasn't ground, it wasn't road. The moment my foot touched it, if you could call it that, a jolt of electric wrongness shot through my body. The air vibrated with discordant frequencies that made my teeth ache and my vision blur. Colors I had no names for assaulted my eyes, and my skin crawled with the sensation of a million tiny insects skittering across it. The taste of ozone and something indefinably alien filled my mouth, making me gag. It was a shifting, swirling mass of colors and textures that hurt my eyes to look at directly. Fractals and impossible geometries that sprawled out in every direction, pulsing with an alien life of their own. And then, everything started to move. Fast. Too fast. The world around me began to blur, as if someone had hit fast forward on reality itself. Trees grew and died in seconds. Mountains rose and crumbled. Oceans formed and evaporated. I turned back to look at the bus, and my blood ran cold. The passengers were shaking, vibrating so quickly they became blurs of motion. Their screams had turned into a high-pitched whine that set my teeth on edge. And the driver? Oh God, the driver. He stood up from his seat, his movements jerky and unnatural. He tiptoed to the door, each step covering impossible distances. His eyes were still wide, his mouth still gaping in that horrified expression. As he reached the door, he raised a hand. A wave. A goodbye. But there was no warmth in this gesture. No humanity. Just a mockery of a familiar action. I stumbled backwards, trying to get away from the bus, from the driver, from everything. But with each step, I felt the world around me changing, shifting, becoming something else entirely. The last thing I saw before the world dissolved completely was the bus. It began to twist and warp, its metal skin peeling away to reveal something underneath. Something alive. Something hungry. And then, everything went black. I don't know where I am now. I don't know when I am. All I know is that the bus ride is over. But I have a terrible feeling that my journey has only just begun. Edit. I'm writing this with shaky hands. I don't know how long it's been since I stepped off that bus. Time has no meaning here, but I've discovered something. Something so horrifying, so mind-shatteringly terrible that I almost wish I was back on that endless ride. After the world went black, I found myself in what I can only describe as a void. No up, no down, just empty, oppressive darkness. I floated there for what felt like an eternity, my mind teetering on the brink of madness. Then, suddenly, I saw a light. Dim at first, but growing brighter. As it approached, I realized it was another bus. Not the same one I'd been on, but similar. It pulled up beside me, and the doors hissed open. Inside, I saw myself. Not just one version of me, but dozens, hundreds. Each one at a different stage of the journey I just experienced. There was me boarding the bus in Pittsburgh. There was me sleeping as the world outside began to warp. There was me writing frantically in my notebook as reality bled away around me. And at the front of the bus, driving, was me. The driver me turned and smiled, but it wasn't my smile. It was too wide, too knowing. Its eyes were black voids reflecting the nothingness around us. It spoke, and its voice was a chorus of my own voice layered over itself 1,000 times.
Welcome home, Alex. We've been waiting for you to join us.
And then I understood. The horrible, devastating truth crashed over me like a tidal wave. There was never a bus to Chicago. There was never a new job. There was only this. This endless loop. This cosmic horror masquerading as a night bus. I wasn't a passenger. I was the bus. I was the driver. I was every terrified version of myself trapped in an eternal cycle of fear and confusion. And now, having stepped off the bus, having seen the truth, I've become part of this mechanism that perpetuates this nightmare. As this realization washed over me, I felt my body begin to change. My skin hardened into metal. My arms and legs elongated, becoming the frame of a bus. My mouth stretched wide, forming the windshield. And my eyes became the headlights, searching endlessly through the void for the next unsuspecting victim. Because that's what we do. We find lost souls, those teetering on the edge of despair, and we offer them a ride. A simple trip from one city to another. But the destination is always the same. This void, this truth, this transformation. And now, as I feel the familiar weight of passengers boarding me, as I see a new Alex take a seat near the back, I understand my role. I am the bus. I am the driver. I am the harbinger of this cyclical nightmare. The doors close, the engine starts, and the journey begins anew. If you're reading this, if you found this message somehow, don't get on the night bus. No matter where you're going, no matter how important it seems, it's not worth it. Because the trip never ends. The night never ends. And neither does the horror of knowing what you become. I don't know how to explain this. My hands are shaking as I type this on my phone. No, that's not right. I'm gripping the steering wheel, knuckles white as I watch myself type on a phone. But I'm also standing outside the bus, watching both of these scenes unfold. I am one, I am three, I am everywhere and nowhere. This isn't just a story anymore, it's a confession, a warning, and a desperate cry for help. I just realized something terrifying. I can see myself writing this post. No, not just see, I am writing this post from 3 different perspectives all at once. I am the passenger frantically typing on my phone. I'm the driver watching the passenger write with a knowing, hollow dread. And I'm outside observing it all, knowing the horrific cycle we're trapped in. The bus keeps driving. The night stretches on. But it's not just one night, is it? It's every night. It's no night. It's an eternity compressed into a single moment. Wait, something's changing. The bus is slowing down. No, that's not right. Time is slowing down. I can see you. Yes, you reading this right now. How is this possible? Are you real? Am I real? Was I ever Alex, or was that just a name I thought I had? Look around you. Really look. Is everything as it should be? Are you sure you're reading this post and not writing it? Think back. When did you start reading this? A few minutes ago? An hour? Yesterday? Or have you always been reading this, caught in an endless loop, just like me, just like us? Can you feel it? The subtle wrongness creeping in at the edges of your vision? The way the words on your screen seem to shift when you're not looking directly at them? You're part of this now. Or maybe you always were. Maybe you're the one who started it. Maybe you're the one who can end it. Try to remember, what was your name before you started reading this? Are you sure it wasn't Alex? Are you sure you're not on a bus right now? A phone or laptop in your hand? The endless night stretching out before you? Don't look out the window. Or do. I can't decide which is worse. The horror of seeing or the horror of not knowing. The bus is gone now. The night is gone. We are everywhere and nowhere watching as time itself unravels before us. The stars are streaking across the sky, leaving trails of fire in their wake. The sun and moon are spinning around the earth in a dizzying dance, days and nights blurring like a strobe light flicker. Civilizations rise and fall in the blink of an eye. As they flashed before my eyes, my senses were overwhelmed. The air was filled with the thunderous roar of empires crumbling, the acrid smoke of burning cities, and the metallic tang of spilled blood. I could taste the dust of forgotten ages on my tongue, feel the weight of eons pressing down on my chest. The dizzying dance of the sun and moon left strobing afterimages burned into my retinas, and the relentless march of time seemed to vibrate in my very bones. We see humanity crawl out of caves, build mighty empires, reach for the stars. We see them tear themselves apart, rebuild, reach higher. Cities sprawl across the earth like glittering webs, then crumble to dust. Forests grow and die in heartbeats. Oceans rise and fall like the breath of a slumbering giant. Humanity evolves, changes, becomes something other. We see them merge with machines, transcend their physical form. AI awakens, spreads, consumes. But the cycle repeats. Greed, fear, hatred, they persist. Even in silicon and quantum matrices, the AIs war amongst themselves just as their creators did. And through it all, we keep writing. This post, this warning, this cry into the void, it streams from our fingertips in an endless flow. Are we writing it? Are you? Does it matter anymore? The Earth changes. Continents drift and collide. Mountains rise and fall like waves on a sea of stone. And still, we write. We see it coming, a point of light in the sky growing larger. An asteroid bearing down on the blue marble of Earth. There's no stopping it. No last-minute salvation. Impact. The world burns. Oceans boil. The sky turns to fire. And then, nothing. The Earth is gone. The sun is gone. The galaxy spins and dies in the span of a thought. We float in the void. Formless. Timeless. And yet, somehow we're still here. Still aware. Still writing. Is this how it ends? Or is this how it begins? The nothingness stretches on for an eternity. Or maybe it's just a moment. Time has no meaning here. And then, a spark. A flicker of light in the darkness. Is it the start of a new universe? The birth of new possibilities? Or is it just the headlights of a night bus, emerging from the gloom? We're still writing, or reading, or both. The words flow endlessly, a stream of consciousness pouring into the void. Was any of this real? All of it? None of it? Does it matter? The bus ride never ends. The night goes on forever. And we keep writing, keep experiencing, keep existing in this liminal space between reality and fantasy, between beginning and end. Welcome to the night bus. Welcome to eternity. Welcome home. The words echoed in the vastness of the void, each syllable stretching into infinity. I felt myself dissolving, becoming one with the endless night, the cosmic horror, the very fabric of this twisted reality. Just as I was about to lose the last shred of my identity, a familiar sound cut through the chaos. The hiss of bus doors opening. Suddenly, like a light switch flickering on, the void, the cosmic horrors, the endless night, all of it vanished in an instant. I found myself standing at a bus stop. The same one where this nightmare began. But I wasn't alone. The bus was there, right in front of me, its doors wide open in silent invitation. The night was quiet, unnaturally so. No breeze, no distant traffic, just stillness. My suitcase stood beside me just as I'd left it. The bus idled, its engine a low, almost subliminal hum that I felt more than heard. The driver sat motionless, his face obscured by shadow. He didn't speak, didn't move, just waited. I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my chest. Everything looked normal, felt normal. But I knew better now. I understood the price of this journey. Time seemed to stretch. It could have been minutes, could have been hours. The bus didn't move. The driver didn't speak. It was as if the whole world was holding its breath, waiting for my decision. My mind raced, replaying the horrors I'd experienced, the cosmic truths I'd glimpsed. The bus promised an escape, a return to normalcy. But I knew that promise was a lie. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I made my choice. "No," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "No, I don't think I will." I grabbed my suitcase and turned away, walking back towards the city lights. With each step, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The job in Chicago, the fresh start, none of it mattered anymore. What mattered was that I was here, now, in control of my own journey. As I walked, I heard the bus doors close behind me, the engine revving as it prepared to depart. Curiosity got the better of me, and I turned to watch it leave. But the bus was gone. The street was empty, as if it had never been there at all. I shook my head, trying to make sense of it all. That's when I noticed something odd about my suitcase. It felt heavier than before. I set it down and unzipped it, my hands trembling. Inside, nestled among my clothes, was a heart-shaped box I'd never seen before. I opened it with shaking fingers. 2 screens flickered to life, one on each side. On one, I saw the old woman, her yarn writhing impossibly. On the other, the businessman, his suit rippling with hidden tentacles. They smiled at me, their eyes reflecting impossible colors. I slammed the box shut, my breath coming in short gasps. This was real. It had all been real. I learned something on that impossible night ride. Sometimes, the journey you think you need isn't the one you should take. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is to stop. Turn around and forge your own path. Even if it means walking alone through the dark. If you're reading this, remember, not every opportunity is meant to be taken. Trust your instincts. And if you ever find yourself at a bus stop late at night, faced with a choice that seems too good to be true, maybe consider walking instead. After all, you never know where that night bus might really be headed, or what souvenirs it might leave behind. Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. If you'd like another way to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/JordanGroupeHorror. As a patron, you'll get access to bonus videos and content. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward, and if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow. And see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.